Hi everyone, so I reached out to GVM, the great video maker company, to send me their F40 Fresnel lens. They didn't ask me to review this. I actually specifically wanted to get this to show it to you. So the reason I wanted to show you this particular product is because as I get more into studio work, like doing portrait photography, product photography, or still life, I'm looking for different ways to modify and shape the light. You know, other than just using your standard softbox and other types of beauty dishes, etc., the Fresnel lens offers a very unique light output. Now, if you're not familiar with what a Fresnel lens is basically it focuses the light into a very tight beam. And it was designed originally back in the 1800s by a gentleman named Augustin Fresnel, and it was used primarily in lighthouses to project a beam of light from shore miles away out into the ocean so that ships could see where the shore was and not run into the rocks. But today, you know, it's been adopted widely in cinematography and photography. And that's because of the kind of light that it generates. It generates a very beautiful gradation from the very brightest part of the beam out to the edges. And I actually purchased one of these more generic Fresnel lenses last year to start using in my photography. And here's a few examples where I was kind of going for that film noir look. But the idea being able to project the light to anywhere you want onto the subject, onto the table, without affecting any of the lighting that you may have set up for the scene. Now this light did perfectly fine, but the reason I wanted to upgrade to the F40 is because it offers very distinct advantages over these generic Fresnel lenses. First of all, this was designed specifically for LED lighting. So basically what they did was they added an additional lens inside the housing here to help project the light directly onto the front element or the Fresnel lens. And this results in a beam of light that's twice as powerful as this generic Fresnel lens. So I measured this. I measured this light versus this one, and I got a full stop more light out of this F40 than I did the generic lens. Secondly, the front ring here is a 7-inch diameter with a little bit of a lip on it, which is exactly the same as your standard 7-inch reflector bowl. So what that means is you can buy standard accessories that you would normally buy, say, for a reflector bowl, you can buy for the Fresnel lens. For example, these barn doors, where if you want to block some of the light fall off or shape the light, or you can get these gels and put those in if you want. So any number of accessories that fit a standard 7-inch reflector dish, you can put on this Fresnel lens. And then finally is the overall build quality and use of high quality materials. So it's very durable and rugged. It's sort of a mixture of plastics and metals here where needed. They've also included a nice little soft pouch. But what this means in the end is basically this light, not only does it produce twice as much light output, say, as these generic Fresnel lenses, it also can run on up to a 300 watt LED light versus, say, this one here only works on lights up to 150 watts. So ultimately, you can get 4 times as much light output out of this Fresnel lens, say, versus the more generic ones. Now let's look at the light output and patterns we get with various modifiers. So I'm using an 80 watt LED. I'm just measuring the center spot at about a 1 meter distance using these settings and shutter priority. So in the first shot, the camera gave me an f4.5, and that'll be our baseline. Now here I've attached a 7-inch reflector, which gave us an f5.6. Was a little surprising until I saw there's actually a little bit of a cold spot right there in the center. Off center, I'm getting closer to f8. Now here I attached a grid to the reflector, and that brought us down to f5, and it also did narrow the beam pattern. But as you can see, the problem with grids, when you move the light too close to your subject, like in product photography or still life, you can actually see the grid pattern in the shadows. Now here I've attached the Fresnel lens at its widest angle of 40 degrees, and you can see we had a pretty big jump here in light output. We're now at f10. And then when I tighten the beam angle to just 10 degrees, you can see we got another nice jump in light output to f13 in the center. So in my very unscientific test here, you can see we went from an f4.5 using the bare bulb to an f13 using the Fresnel lens at 10 degrees spot. So that equates to approximately 3 stops of light, or it's 8 times brighter in the center. So let's look at a couple of examples of using this light. Now here I'm just using a standard 30 by 90 softbox. So I'm getting that nice soft portrait lighting that we've all seen before. And if anything, it's a little bit flat. So what I did was I put the Fresnel lens directly in front of the softbox, thereby layering the light. So I take advantage of the properties of the Fresnel lens together with the soft lighting that we get from the softbox, and it gives the image a lot more depth and dimension to it. You know, you can see my face is a little brighter, and again, the background got a little bit darker. Now here I'm only using the Fresnel lens, and my goal is to create a very smooth transitions from dark to light in the background, and yet create very strong shadows on my face for sort of a film noir effect. Look how smooth the transitions are in the background and the opposite effect on my face. Fresnel lenses are very popular in still life and product photography, so here I'm using the same basic technique on these flowers of mixing soft light and hard light, and yet the Fresnel lighting still gives this beautiful gradation in the background while adding emphasis to the subject. For this shot here, I'm going to narrow the beam angle by rotating the barrel, and I've also angled the light so it doesn't fall onto the background. So I get a very black background and yet still get a beautiful spotlight onto the flowers themselves. Now for this shot here, I'm going to do the opposite and widen the beam angle so I can see more of the vase and the petals on the table, and yet I still maintain that black background and get this beautiful fall off of light from the flowers to the bottom. Now I'd mentioned earlier that this was designed specifically for, say, LED lighting, but you can use this with just regular flashes. Like for example, I've used this with my Godox V1. I've also used it with my 8200 mounted here in the S bracket, and because this uses standard Bowens mount, I can just attach this right to the front like that, and I'll get all the benefits of the Fresnel lens, but just using flashes instead. However, there are some limitations to which flashes you can use with the F40, and that is if your flash or strobe uses one of these bare bulbs, because what happens is the lens element inside will block you from being able to insert this all the way into the body of the Fresnel lens and being able to mount this onto the Bowens mount. So if you're using, say, the 8400 or the 8600, the F40 is not going to work with those. But it works great with the 8200 with the round head attachment, or say Godox V1, V860, etc. So I think a Fresnel lens makes a great addition to anyone's lighting toolkit. I mean, I don't think it should be your first lighting modifier. I mean, if you already have your soft boxes and umbrellas, maybe a few dishes, then get a Fresnel lens. And I think you'll be happy you did, because it really gives a very unique light output and it helps you control the light in ways that just about no other modifier can do. So I can highly recommend the GVM F40. I'll have my affiliate links down below if you're interested in checking it out. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.